last year not knowing anybody, so this is a little bit different this year. It's nice to see everybody. This is a wonderful event, and as Chris mentioned, this is a colleague-nominated celebration of each other, which I think is wonderful. It's great to recognize our peers and our colleagues and be celebrated. So, amid the flurry of changes that are happening in our school and in our department, it's nice to pause, reflect, and recognize those who truly shine. For our department, programs have shifted, curriculum has changed, funding continues to be a challenge. I could go on and on, but that's not why we're here. It's a lot to manage. All of the finalists from our department today, from our department, are worthy and had similar approaches to managing change, and that's kind of to embrace it and go with it. That said, it's my pleasure now to talk for a few minutes about Sharon McCreary, who over the course of the last few months has changed jobs, moved offices, and transitioned out of the classroom, which I know has been difficult for her, into a role that was so sorely needed in our school and in our department to serve our over 100 volunteers, who are such a vital part to our ESL program in our school. As some of you may know, Sharon started at Emily Griffith nearly 20 years ago. Her current role in the school as our ESL volunteer coordinator is sort of a full circle for her because she started at the school as a volunteer in the ESL program. She fell so in love with what she was doing that she stopped her corporate job, her well-paying corporate job. She got a master's degree and she decided to come and teach at our school. Since that time, she's seen a lot of changes through administrations, through programs, through funding, through direction. And Sharon, I hope I'm not talking here about things that you're going to be talking about, but she's just been a true force in the spirit of the school. If anybody needs any history about the department or the program or the school, feel free to reach out to Sharon. She's a fierce and I would say borderline rabid supporter of Emily Griffith and the mission of our school. Additionally, she brings to the role of the volunteer coordinator the ability and really the gift to support both the country's newest citizens and the receiving community of Denver. She understands firsthand what a rewarding and necessary experience that is, and how that single act brings about more positive change than just about any other. Sharon embraces, and I would say devours, all that she does. If you don't know what she does, ask her. Although she's our volunteer coordinator, she does a lot more than just that. She manages the nearly 100 volunteers that we have in our ESL classrooms, who support our teachers and our students in the programs every day. And she trains and supports almost 60 volunteers who go out to homes in the community and teach English to homebound refugees. Sharon has perhaps one of the most unique job descriptions of anyone at the school. She interviews scores of volunteers. She trains them on how to be an ESL teacher, and she also trains people on the refugee resettlement process in Denver on her nights and weekends. She drives all over the metro area, all hours of the day, night and on weekends. She spends time in the homes of homebound refugees, visiting, sitting on the floor, eating food and drinking tea, sometimes just so that they have a friendly face to look at and smile to. Sharon also dutifully and enthusiastically represents our school and our programs at multiple community events, as her husband Leo only knows too well. She observes classes, she works with teachers, she schedules volunteers, she orders books, she updates blogs and web pages, single-handedly running a social networking empire. And all of this is indeed in her job description. What's not in her job description is all of the mentoring work that she does with young adults, the numerous speaking engagements that she participates in over the course of the year at industry conferences and at the invitation of universities and colleges, and other community partners. I cannot tell you how many times I've been somewhere in the world, in Denver, when they've said, oh yeah, I know that, what is her name? Sharon McCreary, yeah, Sharon McCreary. Yeah, I heard her speak at. So Sharon is a true advocate for our programs and what we do. Oh, and by the way, she runs and manages a side business, a little something. Some of you have her lanyards that her the women in her craft initiative have made. She's truly a remarkable person. So in preparing for this, I reached out to her colleagues and asked them to tell me why they nominated her and ultimately decided to vote for her and elect her to this prestigious award. And here's just a little bit of what I heard. Sharon is beyond ordinary. She's extraordinary with a capital E. She exemplifies professionalism. She thinks of things that don't occur to most of us. She's dedicated. She loves her students. She's able to adapt and thrive. She works hard to support us in what we need. She knows how to stretch resources and make creative suggestions. She's exceptionally courteous and professional. She makes everyone feel special. She's got that C-smile sport thing down. She's respectful and generous. She's sensitive and supportive. I could go on and on. This is quite a testament that any of us would be honored to have those words spoken about us by those who we work with. From my own perspective, I agree with all those sentiments. And to wrap up, I just want to share some of what I value most about Sharon. Since I've been here for the past year and a half, I've learned a lot from Sharon. Not just about the world of refugee resettlement and the not-so-secret histories of Emily Griffith Technical College. Working with Sharon and knowing her has really pushed me to be better. We are incredibly lucky that Sharon is here as part of our support network for our faculty and students. To the long list of characteristics I read above, I'll just add that I believe Sharon to be an astute, keen, and incredibly perceptive woman. I value her common sense and her wisdom. She gets the job done, often quietly in the background, choosing to give the honor to others in the foreground, other than herself. Her voice is strong and she fiercely fights for her beliefs, and I'm glad she's on our side. It continues to be my pleasure to work with Sharon and to work for Sharon, and it is now my honor to introduce her. I'm a little verklempt. Thank you, Linda. Last week I was in New York visiting friends, some of whom I hadn't seen in over 20 years. And it was during that visit that I realized what an Emily Griffith geek I am, because we were well into the second day when I realized I was annoyed that no one had asked me what I do for a living. And it wasn't that I wanted to talk about myself, but I wanted to talk about our school and the work that we do. And
which you do all the time.
yeah, and I didn't let us down. I just barged in and started talking about it anyway. So I know a lot of you here, and some of you know how I ended up at Emily Griffith, and Linda just gave you a hint of that, but I wanted to tell you a little bit about that, how I ended up here and what I do. And I was thinking about this week, and I thought, where do I start? Like, at what point in the timeline do I begin? And I had to go way, way back, because it matters. When I was 15 years old, I participated in a summer study abroad program in Brazil. 2 years later, I completely bailed out of high school at the end of my junior year and set off to learn about life in Chile for the next 365 days. Through my South American travels, I saw great paradoxes of beauty and violence, wealth and poverty, happiness and need. I was fascinated and sometimes disturbed by what I encountered, but from that point onward, I knew I wanted to know more about the world and how it got to be the way it was. At the time, I thought my life path was becoming clearly defined. I was going to be a world traveler for the rest of my life, taking in the nuances of exotic and unfamiliar cultures and maybe helping people out along the way. With 2 solo trips to South America before I was even 18, I was off to such a good start. Regarding my future, I turned out to be right and wrong at the same time. As it turned out, I did not actually become a world traveler. In fact, my passport expired in 1981, and I haven't had one since. My world is far from small, however. Although life's realities have kept me close to home, I have never, ever forgotten
how I felt during my time in South America. I remembered feeling confused and often misunderstood, unable to communicate before I learned the language, culturally disoriented, and often very, very lonely. The experience changed something deep inside of me, and ever since, I've wanted to help others who are new to the United States so that they would not feel lost, confused, and voiceless, at least not for very long. Some of you know it was my previous career in the cable television industry that brought me from my beloved East Coast to Colorado. I didn't want to come here, and I didn't know anyone in Denver when I arrived in January of 1995. Soon after I arrived in Denver, I saw a blurb in the Denver Post that indicated there was a need for in-home tutors to help newly arrived refugee women learn English. Perfect. I signed up immediately. During some employment, we'll call it downtime, a little over a year later, the program director asked me to volunteer at Emily Griffith Opportunity School, which I had never heard of, in the ESL office for a couple of weeks while one of the employees was out for knee surgery. Okay, sure. And here's what happened. I wasn't looking for a job. I wasn't looking for a career change. But once I entered the doors of Emily Griffith, I pretty much never left. I've often told people that coming here triggered an epiphany for me. I realized that although my media job was exciting, I felt like I had been living on a diet of M&Ms, and I woke up one day realizing I needed something more substantial to feed my soul, and I had found it. My parents thought I had lost my mind when I changed careers, but I have always felt privileged to be a part of the team at our school. I consider it an honor to work side by side with my colleagues, who are some of the most decent people I have ever known. I'm humbled that my coworkers chose me to be the recipient of this award. My situation at Emily Griffith has undergone some significant changes in the last 6 months, as Linda explained. It was a lot of change all at once, and I've tried my best to meet the challenge. I want to thank my coworkers for letting me know they think I'm up to the task of supporting them and the volunteers who help us as we prepare our students to integrate into an unfamiliar country with an often baffling culture. I would also like to publicly, say a very special thank you to my husband, Leo Lebecki.
Woohoo!
Who, over the last 18 years, has taken over all of the housework and cooking. So I have the time I needed to get a master's degree, help students, train volunteers, educate the receiving community about refugee issues, do countless in-home visits with refugee families, and oversee the many demands of the Refugee Crafts program. Thank you, Leo, for being all kinds of awesome in too many ways to mention. I've found it doesn't really matter that I haven't had a passport for over 30 years because I get to meet the world every day through my job. 18 years is a long time to work at the same place, but in case you don't know this, I love our students, especially those in the refugee program. They inspire me every day with their courage and their optimism and their willingness to do the hard work of making a life here. Working with refugees has made me a more patient, tolerant, and compassionate person. I've learned that sometimes it's okay not to tackle life all at once, but rather just take it a day at a time. I've learned to appreciate what having enough really means, and I am pleased to report, especially for those of you who've known me a long time, that working with refugees has gifted me with a much higher tolerance for ambiguity and beaten most of the type A out of my personality. My work isn't only with amazing colleagues and endearing students, though. I also have a certain kind of crazy love for the hundreds of volunteers I've known through almost 2 decades of classroom and in-home contact. On the days I am most discouraged, It is working with our students and our volunteers that makes me believe, no matter what terrible thing is being reported in the news, I believe with all my heart that people are inherently good. You don't need big gestures to show it either. Please never forget that smiles are an international language. Kindness is magic, and the work we do here really, truly matters. Keep up the good work, everyone, and thank you for letting me be a part of it.